You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
The chasers of light, to the purveyors of pictures. That's hoppy. To all of you listening from around the world, this is the F11 Photography Podcast.
Yes, it is.
And that was hoppy. I'm your host, Kevin Deal. Along with your other host, Brandon Gorey.
How we doing, folks? Welcome back to the F11 Photography Podcast.
So we thought we were going to do a smooth intro with the beers today.
Beer all
and
over me.
And it totally backfired because they were overcarbonated and they were pretty hoppy on the front end. And for a Pilsner, I wasn't expecting that much hops. I was expecting a little bit of hops, but that is a hoppy Pilsner. It says it's an Italian. It's called Birra de Bocce. It's an Italian-style Pilsner. It's good. I like it. It just was a little... it has the crispness I would want out of an Italian Pilsner, but it's definitely hoppier than most Italian Pilsners.
It's top-heavy for sure. You know, it's got that boldness. It doesn't shy away. That's for damn certain.
Absolutely. So, F11pod.com is where you can find us. Of course, if you are new to this channel... welcome, and if you like what you see, you can hopefully, humbly, we ask you, click the subscribe button below. For those of you listening on Apple and Spotify, for the majority of you, welcome back. But if you're new there as well, welcome listening to us. We try to be as descriptive as possible when we talk about our subject matter, so those of you who are listening in your cars during your commutes are not left out. But we are moving toward a more visual presentation of this pod because we're visual creatures. We're photographers. That's what we do. We tell stories with what we see. And so if I were really good at words and really good at putting things down, I'd be a writer, which I'm not. So nope. I think that's a good way to describe it. So like I said, though, F11pod.com, you can find us on all major social media platforms at the F11pod handle. And we took last week off. I did do a pod on the Fuji X100VI, which I have now had for about 3 weeks. It's a really cool camera. And we had really great response to our last video pod, specifically from HoboLite. So that was cool.
It was really cool getting a shout out from them. You know, what was funny about that episode is we had to record it twice. I'm breaking the fourth wall a little bit here, but we had some technical difficulties and we were like 45, 50 minutes in, and then the whole thing just kiboshed. Actually,
it was not fun. It was actually the opposite of fun. It actually really sucked. So we are coming from humble beginnings, but we are getting really great response from all of you. If something strikes a chord with you, tell us about it in the comments below. If you think we suck, tell us about it in the comments below.
Just let us know.
Yeah, just let us know. We like to get better. You know, if you don't like us, hit that dislike button twice. So you really let us know that you don't like us. Like really dislike us and hit it twice.
Yeah.
But it has to be twice.
Maybe even hit the like button once if you don't like us.
Yeah, hit the like button once or the dislike button twice.
Consider subscribing.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, we do have sponsors, and we're going to get to today's sponsor right now. Today's episode is sponsored by Gamut. Are you looking for world-class cinematic video LUTs? Check out Gamut. Whether you're shooting on Sony, Canon, Panasonic, Nikon, DJI, or Blackmagic, their conversion LUTs bring all your footage to the same starting place. That's right, if you're shooting a wedding and one of your cameras is Canon and the other is Nikon, the footage will all end up looking the same. And don't worry, Fuji users, help is on the way. I've actually been in contact with Gamut, and they're telling me that they are working on LUTs for Fuji. They also make creative LUTs that are catered toward weddings, commercials, editorials, and YouTube projects. Gamut now also offers movie barcode generators. Want to create your own movie barcode? Well, now you can by using their entirely free movie code barcode generator. Use that generator to build out palettes and barcodes for your films. Go to gamut.io to check out their insanely generous holiday offerings, and I'll leave a link in the description of this pod.
Hi, this is Ethan Tran, and you're listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
All right, welcome back. So, as I stated earlier, we've been off for a couple of weeks as a video pod. So, Brandon, what have you been up to?
Well, I've taken a bit of a hiatus as well from photography because my brother and I, we are running a small business now, which is very exciting. And you might ask, what are we doing in our small business? And I'm so glad you asked that question in your minds while you're listening to this podcast. We are making concrete home decor.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So like you could knock a bitch out with this.
Yeah, so that's the cool thing is this is a solid concrete coaster with cork on the bottom. And it's food safe sealed as well. And this weighs 2 pounds. So it's a very chunky coaster. As well as that, we've also got Kevin's coaster right here, which we've been building. And it's called the Floodgate. Now we modeled this after a literal floodgate. It's a very brutalist design. I'm going to put this back on the thing.
But you've gone through iterations because next to it is your prototype, right?
Yeah, so check this out. So this is one of our first prototypes, and it's a much paler kind of like bone dry piece with no cork on the bottom or anything, plenty of blemishes, and there's already tons of streaking on the top. It's not sealed whatsoever. So I gave this to Kevin in good jest because I thought it was important that he had one of our first iterations. And now we've come so far. So that's what we've been doing, fulfilling orders, tracking sales, and doing marketing promo.
That's awesome, man. Well, check it out. Well, I'm actually going to put a link below because I'm going to plug Brandon because this stuff is actually pretty cool. If you find yourself standing in a bread line in Eastern Europe and you want a coaster, this is the coaster for you. I should be your marketing manager.
Yeah, you should. So yeah, no, we're called Ill-Found,
cool.
and you can actually look at our logo right here, and there will be a link in the description below if you're interested.
Now, that's awesome. I'm always going to take advantage of the fact that we have this really cool pod to promote our own things because, frankly, if you are an entrepreneur and you are somebody who believes in multiple revenue streams, you should try to lift up other people who are trying to do that and celebrate them. Because I've had people, it's funny, I've actually had people go, oh, man, I liked it until you started plugging your stuff. And it's like, you mean I'm trying to make a buck?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to like pay my mortgage. Like
yeah, that 2 minutes can really grind you down, you know.
Especially if you don't know how to use a slider.
Yeah.
We've gone over that several times. Like YouTube turns 20 next year, and people still don't know how to use the slider. So anyway, we thank you very much. Speaking of stuff I've been up to, so in our previous episode, I showed Brandon that I got the 8-liter Peter McKinnon sling bag, and Brandon thought it was so cool that he bought one of his own.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Well, I decided to get the 35-liter, and this thing is insane.
Oh my
insane. God. So I gotta show it to you real quick.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So first and foremost, this is the materials are amazing on this. So when you open this guy up, like boom, you can fit your clothes in here because this is actually a spot where you can put all like your socks and all that, and then it's just like a luggage bag. It's got that little tie down, which is really cool, and then you've got all these pouches. So and then if you need to expand it out, there's another zipper right here that you can get to, and it makes it stick out more. So this guy right here, Now it expands out, which is cool.
So there's your weekend carry right there.
Yeah. And by the way, Nomadic, I expect a royalty check for this sales pitch. I paid for this bag, by the way. So if you're wondering if like Nomadic sponsors us, they don't. I just think this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
Additionally, you can't see it. I'll probably like throw a little bit of B-roll on there. But so you've got this pouch back here, which is cool. But right here, this is magnetic, so you can put like your passport there. And it also has one of those things that like jams people who try to steal your credit card. Magnetics.
Yeah, the RFID blocker.
It's got a blocker in here. So you got all that, and that's really cool. And another cool attention to detail. Obviously, you've got the side access, which I actually don't like, and I'll probably never use. But most photographers disagree with me. They like getting to their camera
quickly. Scarred for life after he dropped his Canon out of his side pouch.
This might be one of the coolest attention to detail right here. So this is this right here. It's magnetic for your water bottle.
Oh my gosh. I would actually use a water bottle in this thing. Usually I don't because they're so flimsy and difficult, but that's cool.
And then laptop compartment right there. And now, here comes the biggest surprise that Brandon isn't prepared for.
Aha!
Aha! Hobo light!
Oh my good! Wow, they are small. Wow.
That's a 20 watt.
Wow.
That's a 20 watt.
You know what?
And that's a 100 watt.
Oh! You know what? I remember what I said about these in our last recorded episode is Hobo Light makes the most out of light by giving you full control over the shape of it. So you know how most people approach light? They're like, oh, I'm just going to add more watts. These guys are so much cooler. How do you turn it on?
Okay, so we're going to do 2 segments today. The first segment is we're going to go over cool new toys, which is what we're doing now. And then we're going to do a second segment where we're going to talk about tips about photography. So Brandon asked, how do you turn on a Hobo Light? There's only 2 knobs on it, and you just hold this one down, and then it asks you to twist it clockwise, and now it's on. And then you can zoom it.
I want to
So it's at 22%. There you go.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, and that plugs into the wall, it plugs into a USB-C, which is really cool. And then the other knob is for color temperature, and when you click them, it goes through 25% increments. So you could get a 25% power or 75, and then also when you click on the bottom one, it goes through the color temperature. Like you can variably go through the color temperature. Make sure you're pointing at the camera so it gives you a nice lens flare.
Ooh, yeah. There's my Z8 putting in work. I've got a pro mist filter on my lens right now, so it's getting that nice
so
specular glare.
So that's what's going on with that guy.
Wow.
And then
that focus is nice. The throw is really nice.
Yeah, and what's cool about the focus on that is there's no hot spot in the middle. So it works differently than when you have like one of those zoom reflectors or those reflectors that you put on the end. Yeah, so it's like Oppenheimer. It's like burning my cornea. What's the percentage at, by the way? 70?
79.
Yeah, so you can make that even crazier. I think you can get like upwards of an hour out of that thing. At 100.
And I love how there's a little fan in here as well. Like
so check out, there's also ports. They also put ports like on the side. You can see like their ports.
Hold on. Can you turn this light off real quick? I want to throw this on the wall. I mean, we've got the lights.
How about I turn these lights off?
Okay, yeah.
That way you can throw them on that wall real quick. Give me a minute. I'm going to take you through some of the other cool features of this. So,
sorry, I'm really excited.
No, I got to pull my phone out because it has an app. Here's where it gets more fun. So this is the creator kit.
Barn doors.
So this is the creator kit that Hobo Light was nice enough to give me. Thank you, Helena. Thank you, Kevin at Hobo Light. Put that on. Here, I'm going to let you figure it out because I think you're a smart guy. There's that. I think he's smart. So, and then try to figure out what you're supposed to do with those. Because the whole point of this is I wanted to put you on the spot to see how easy these actually were. I'm actually doing my review of it as we speak. It's
got a nice fit.
Yeah, this is the creator kit. This is called the Mini. So they make a Micro, which is 10 watts. They make the Mini, which is what you're holding on to right now. They make the Avant 100, which is this, and then they make the Explorer, which is the 300.
What's really interesting is the reflector that they have inside it. So there's an LED, and it comes with a reflector like inherent, which obviously helps you zoom, and it helps you get the most out of the LED itself, because I'm sure they put a lot of money into the a nice LED bulb.
So that is all internal battery, which is pretty cool. And that is called the Mini Creator Kit, which is
Beautiful.
really cool.
I've got it at 4,600 Kelvin right now.
By the way, they have an app for it too. So
Wow, this goes down
I don't
to-
have it in front of me, but
Look at that with the Pro Mist. It's just so nice.
so remember I was telling you that I did my dive helmet shoot.
Yeah.
Guess what light I used at sundown after I started doing the flash stuff? This guy. And I had this guy at 10%, and it was like too powerful. So it can actually get really powerful at like sundown. Put it like right there, yeah, in the corner. You can
So
definitely.
so that's all the way zoomed in.
Uh-huh.
And then you zoom it out, and it's like, yeah, there's no hot spot. It's kind of just, it's so...
Now attach that to the front. Now you got a dome
That's
diffuser.
a magnetic.
Yeah, dome diffuser.
So it's a dome diffuser. I'm gonna rim Kevin here.
You can take the dome diffuser off, and they got color gels that are magnetic.
Oh my gosh, it's a full magnetic system. It takes like 3 seconds to install.
Now-
I feel the need to like advertise for these guys because like it's just so nice. It's nice light.
It gets okay.
Yeah.
So then,
We got that 5600K shining on me here.
have you looked at the bottom of it yet? What is that?
Oh my gosh, it's a proprietary clip.
No, it's not. It's not proprietary.
Is it not?
What does that look like?
An aperture clip.
It's a V mount.
Oh.
So like a V mount battery. So put that in. Boom. Look at that. Now look at that metal machining. As somebody who makes
Wow.
concrete coasters for a living, I think you might think that's kind of cool.
You know
at
what
that.
this is great for? So
What?
this small guy,
That would be great for your product photography. That's literally what it's made for.
reels, product reels,
Yeah,
product
that's what I'm saying.
marketing, all of the above.
That's what I'm saying.
A tabletop tungsten light to give your like product photos a nice rim. Oh my gosh.
So this comes with a hard shell case and all this stuff, and it's $3.99. So you could be a product photographer and use this, and $3.99 whole thing.
That looks like if Toy Stories was trying to do a photo shoot. That looks like if Pixar tried to make a mini like photo set because it's so
yeah.
tiny.
So that's this guy. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you put this guy in your lap. Now we're gonna move on to this guy.
Oh gosh.
So this is the Avant 100. This does not have a variable lens. Has a fixed 45, which unlike that one, you have to push this down. And now you can put, it's a mini Bowens mount. So you can, they make their own softbox, which I did not bring, but Hobolite was nice enough to give me for my review. And you can put it on the front. And they also have an adapter for Bowens, which is really cool. So here's this guy. I'm gonna let you hold it for a second while I get this battery pack, which can last for up to an hour at 100%. So I'm gonna put that there. And then we've got a D-tap, which will go to the side. So we'll put the D-tap in. And this one will really burn my face if we, and then this guy can go here, which is great because it's nice, like a nice, 3-foot cable. And what's cool, if you think Hobolite lights are cool, they're stands, man. These are some of the most insane stands. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, dude. So,
Oh, wow.
So they strap the legs down, and then when you open them up, hold on. There we go.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Now we got this. Look at that. That's how many degrees you can turn it. So it's stepped. Look at that. This machining, and I'll put it in there. So like, look at the machining of what holds it.
Here, let me just.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me your first impressions. What do you think?
It's overproduced.
In a good way.
And they go. This is like the Paris gun.
There's the umbrella mount. There's an umbrella mount there.
Oh my gosh.
So if you got umbrellas and you don't feel like taking a modifier with you, you can do that. Now, I'm going to have you figure this out in real time. Attach this to this. This is the test to see how easy it is. Now, how do you tighten it down so it doesn't fall off? There you go. Yeah, see? Very simple to use.
2.5 turns.
2.5 turns. Now, you put it on here, just like a regular light stand. Now here's where it gets way cooler. Where do we put this? Hold this. You take this little guy right here. Actually, you got to make sure that the V is going down and the Hobolite logo is up. Go ahead and hang them on there. Now, power button. It'll all turn itself on, and boom. I think it's a cool product, and I know a lot of you watching this are, you're just like, oh, I don't know if I'd ever use that, and maybe not, but I can tell you that I review a shit ton of lights on my YouTube channel, monoblock lights. None of them are this cool. Like for 100 watts, I mean, this thing it weighs 2.75 pounds for a 100 watt light. That's pretty awesome. Now, there's another component to this. Yeah, that by the way doesn't even have the lens on there. So go ahead and put the lens on, and there's a lock right here.
Okay.
Yeah, you push the button in, boom, and there's a little icon right there that tells you to lock it. Now, if you don't like the 45-degree fixed lens, they do sell a variable lens that you can buy, so a zoom lens, so a Fresnel basically.
Yeah.
So really cool. That's one of the things I've been up to.
That's 26%
I'm in the middle of the Hobo Light review, and I will share some pictures on the screen right now, some video of some behind the scenes I did with this light, just to kind of show you how it works out in the field. It did start raining. This is not IP rated, so I darted because I didn't want Hobo Light to go, hey, why is our light not working? I felt a drop of rain, and I was like, oh, crap. So they do make IP rated versions of their lights, though. The 20 watter that you have, the mini, they actually do make IP rated version of it. I think that's blue. So they make them in like red, blue, and tan. Hobo Light was cool enough to give me a couple of the tan models. So that's kind of what I've been up to as far as reviews. This is the review I'm neck deep in right now. And yes, I forgot. Well, here's why you screwed up. The reason you screwed up is you tried to put the mini stuff on there. They've got their own. Here, go ahead. Boom. There.
Oh my gosh.
And then they give you this pouch as well.
Oh my gosh.
With the same magnets.
Huh.
That's why the gel fell off, because you were trying to put the wrong size gel on there. So now it's the same thing. You got a grid. You got a dome diffuser. Which is really cool.
This is what I'm doing on my Friday night, guys.
Hey, And then you've got your different multicolored gels. So why don't you turn the wall blue real quick while you're over there?
I feel like
Make yourself useful.
I feel like I'm the Michael Scott meme where
I'm at 2,700 Kelvin. I'm going to take this guy up to 55. Boom.
I just suddenly got involved in everything Hobo Light.
Now Lucy is on the blue side. There's Lucy. So
she's feeling blue.
She's feeling a bit blue. So anyway, that's one of the things I'm up to. I'm reviewing this guy right here. It's the VSGO Duster. And as somebody who has to clean film negatives, this is actually a kind of cool thing. I put up the headline, it blows, and that's a good thing. You want your duster to blow. So that's what I got going on. And let me turn it on. And it's just like a little gun. There, right there. That's the yeah. Pull up the far left. That one. That's it right there, man.
Damn.
So it's got 3 speeds, which is cool. So another cool product I'm working on right now, a review. And so you can use it to clean a CMOS sensor. It's got a light on it, so you can see dust, which is cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, lots of fun. And then there's different attachments. You can even inflate a mattress with it. You can also clean your keyboard. But you think about
what's its rated PSI?
It's weird. They didn't do it in PSI. They just they did it in like kilometers per hour, which I don't use that measurement. I don't know if that's a Chinese thing.
Good for them.
but my review is basically if you're cleaning a CMOS sensor, put it to setting 1. If you're cleaning a lens, put it to setting 2. Or if you're cleaning a lens that has stubborn dust, put it to setting 3. That's been my review.
It's so hot in here.
Yeah, it is a little hot
really
in
hot
here
in
today.
there.
So anyway, that's what I've been up to. Yeah, there you go. We're gonna now move on. Ooh, that feels good. That's actually kind of nice. It's like a little fan.
It is. It's really loud though.
Yeah, it is really loud. So we're gonna move on to our subject of the day now, because I just wanted to be like Q from James Bond. You know, like when James Bond walks into like the Q's place and Q's like, "Here's this cool little thing. It's like a piece of bubble gum that'll make your head explode." Like I just decided I wanted to like show off all the things that I'm reviewing right now. As a matter of fact, the caption I have with this is the VSGO Duster. it blows. And I think I'm going to keep that headline. So that review will be out in the morning. So that review will be out before this review. So I'm going to put a card in there and plug my own channel. But that's what I've been up to. And yeah, you can take this thing. Hold on, one last thing on this. The nice thing about this is you can take this off and transport it and make it smaller. And so if you have like one of those little pump air blower things, you know, this doesn't get, that's not much thicker than one of those when you store it.
Yeah, the rocket.
Yeah, yeah. So you take this and you put it in multiple pieces, and then you put it back on. It's like a gun.
Yeah, when you get pulled over, don't pull that out of your glove compartment.
Hey, man. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. But we're going to move on to the subject of today's episode, which are tips in photography that will help you get better as a photographer. And since I had to put all this crap away, Brandon's going to start today and talk to us about some things that he wants to talk to you about that will hopefully help you get better as a photographer.
All right. Well, that's my cue. So today, I want to talk about some actionable items that you guys can employ to help improve your photography. First and foremost, I want to talk about cropping. I don't think a lot of people talk about cropping so much. I think there's an art form to cropping, and I think you get better at cropping as you do it more. Now, if you're a purist and you're into film, you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't need to crop. My prime lens is the crop. I need to shoot the way I need to shoot. And while that's correct, while I think you should be lining up the shot how you believe it should be shot at at all times, there are times when the shot that you want to get, the end result, which is probably the most important part of taking photos, there's times when the end result can be enhanced and the story can be emboldened by the crop itself. So I wanted to go into a couple of categories. Let me just change my screen. Oh, there's OBS. So let's go over to Capture One. I want to show you guys some examples of cropping. So let's look at this image. These are some recent images I took of a girl named Haley, and we had a great idea going into it. We wanted to kind of just leave it all on the floor. So first and foremost, let's talk about cropping. Before the crop on this image right here, this is what the image looked like. Now, I was definitely satisfied with how this came out right off the bat. I like the rawness of it. I like the texture of it. I like the black and white, and I like how the high contrast gives me a clear shape and definition. You know that the face is here, which means you can presume that this is a body. Now, the thing is if you're taking multiple photos, right? I've got tons of photos of the body that I've included. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, how can I make this photo better? What do I really want to see out of this? What's more interesting in this photo? Is this negative space interesting to me? Is this negative space interesting to me? Is this negative space, like how much does the rest of this image really inform you about the emotionality of the image and the narrative of the image versus if I take this guy in and I risk some quality. Never be afraid to risk quality. What you actually do is you get enough information about the image to where the focus becomes very obvious, but you also know what's going on. So right here, we've got that upside down face of her not looking directly into the camera, but somewhere in the distance. You can presume that these shoulders are hers, but at the same time, maybe they're not. It's a bit of an abstract image. And I think that's what makes this really special is it poses more questions than it answers when it's cropped in like this. We still have enough quality to where you can tell what's going on. And I even think the lack of quality as you crop in gives it that, that much more dreamlike aspect of it that just keeps it interesting. Another example that's a little bit less severe would be this one right here. So I cropped this in to give a nice balanced negative space to where I wanted to highlight the artifacts that are going on in this image. I used some magnifying Fresnel lenses and paired two up against each other and shot through them to get this really nice distorted effect where my camera wouldn't actually focus on her. Instead, it focused on the lens, as you can see here. What did it look like beforehand? Well, beforehand, there was a lot more involved, right? So looking at the full image now, you get to kind of see the context, all right? So you can see where the clamp is holding the Fresnel lenses. You can kind of see texture in the top right hand of the frame, which is all good. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, like, even if you like this texture, even if you think it's cool and additive to the photo, you have to ask yourself, like, is it strong enough to keep in the image? What's the focus? Is the focus her? Is the focus this? Is there enough tension between the subject and the periphery that it itself becomes a subject? You know, is that synthesis powerful enough? And I'd argue that it's not. So here, what I think is stronger than the synthesis of her periphery and herself, what I think is stronger is her actual emotions, the subject itself. I think she's a pretty strong subject. I'd argue that she is. And I think that this texture surrounding her complements her strength as a subject. And so that's why I would crop there.
Well, I think that is a great subject that you bring up, because I think that there's like a Miles Davis quote, and I'm going to butcher the hell out of it, but it's like the notes that you don't play are just as important as the notes that you do play. I think that's the quote, the Miles Davis quote.
Crazy. That's
yeah.
A crazy quote.
Well, with cropping, there's a nuance involved there. It's like what you don't show is just as important as what you do show, because people may judge your picture negatively on things that you do show that had you not shown them, they would have liked your picture much better.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some cropping can happen in many different ways. In the modern age, it's using a high megapixel camera. You know, people are like, hey, you know, why do you need a 100 megapixel camera? Well, I don't need a 100 megapixel camera, but by God, it has saved my ass on many occasions where it's like, wow, I can still see lots of details, and I cropped out 80% of the picture. So that's pretty cool. But yes, the stuff that you don't show is just as important as the stuff that you do show. And part of that, of course, you can go check out the link in the description. I'll put a card up high. But we talked about focal length, you know, figuring out what focal length you want to shoot at. What does it want to tell? Does it want to tell more about my subject, in which case you want to be tighter, right? However, are you losing the story by being too cropped in? Where do you crop? When you think about that kind of stuff, it's like, hey, maybe I want to shoot this at 35 millimeter versus 85 millimeter, because maybe the story around the subject, while 35 still keeps my subject like very much like obvious, like, hey, this is who this is about. I kind of need to know what they were doing, what was going on. And so by choosing your lens correctly, that could help you with that. However, sometimes you want that 85, and sometimes you just don't have the damn lens, which is why you crop.
You know, something, when I think of using primes, Kevin illustrates a great point versus highlighting subject versus not subject. When I think of primes, I think of a more cinematic approach. When do you use a really tight lens in cinema? You use a tight lens in cinema to elucidate detail shots, close-ups of the face, etc. You know, really tight, tense portrayals of emotionality. You also use really tight lenses, really tight focal lengths, when you want to portray a sense of distance. You know, when you look at certain aspects of Greek classical frescoes or Greek painting or Greek sculptures of Aphrodite, a lot of them are of her bathing like she doesn't know someone is there. And why do I say that? Not because I'm a heterosexual male. I say that because when you use a 105 or a 135 millimeter lens to capture the entire subject, it gives a sense of not being right in front of them. It gives a sense of distance. It gives a sense of apathy, indifference, coldness, callousness when you portray a subject that way versus using a 50 or a 35, which makes them a lot more personable and engaged to the audience.
Right on, man. Anything else on cropping you want to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about one more thing, and this is just a little bit more nuanced. This is less obvious, but I think it's important nonetheless. So another time I'd crop is when there's literally just a little bit of extra negative space. Now, I was shooting these shots on the fly because the focus was difficult to nail through the Fresnel lenses, and this still isn't in focus. But where I cropped it is, I thought to myself, like, her eyes are looking upwards, right? So she's leading this negative space with her eyesight, and that's a natural human thing to observe. but there's nothing going on in this negative space. There's no object that she's connecting to tell the story. So in that case, what happens? There's nothing there. Get rid of it. And then the subject becomes a lot more profound. You're more obsessed with the actual look and emotionality of her face, as opposed to that missing object that is no longer there, that you can't make that connection to. The photo then becomes awkward and doesn't connect as well.
Right on, man. Well, normally I'm the one who pulls out the charts and the examples and all that and the technical stuff. And Brandon is usually the abstract guy, but I'm going to flip the script today, and I'm not going to pull up any examples. Uncle Kevin's just going to have a talk with you today. So when you get started with photography, if you ask me, hey, what's a good piece of advice you can give me to get better at photography? It's go take a bunch of pictures. However, when you get to a point, my advice is flipped the other way, which is take less pictures. And what do I mean by that? We can get super into our gear and we can get super technical and we can take a bunch of pictures and then we go through and we cull them after the fact. But how much connection did we actually have to what we were doing? And a good measuring stick that you're getting better at what you're doing is that you can do it more efficiently. So if you are hired or you have a personal project and you're trying to execute something, if you can do it in less shots, that's a sign that you're improving. If you have to take 2,500 shots at a portrait session, how much work are you actually putting into thought? How much work is the camera putting into it? Are you just holding down your shutter release and then shooting in drive mode? I'm sorry, but unless you're shooting sports or you're shooting a bird in flight, in my opinion, I don't even touch drive mode. I think it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of my battery. And when I go back in and I see 13 of the exact same shot, I'm like, they all look the same. Pick one. Or if you are in fact getting better at photography, couldn't you just pull your viewfinder up to your eye, take a picture, look at the back of your screen and go, yeah, zoom in, everything's in focus. Okay, awesome. I did that. I executed that. Now let's move on to the next thing. Because in the context of what I do, I shoot a lot of models, and a lot of models will be like, wow, we're already done. I'm like, yeah, I just checked and everything looks good. I show them the back of the camera. Do you agree? And they're like, yeah, that looks great. And it's like, awesome. How many more awesome shots can we get today? Or do we want to sit at the same shot after we know we've executed it and try to execute it 25 more times? Like, how much of your life are you going to waste doing the exact same thing? And I think as you get better and as your confidence grows, you should know what a finished good product looks like. And with autofocus improving, you should know, Fuji aside, I love Fuji. I shoot Fuji, but I have to check my focus a lot because I miss the eyes. But with my Canon cameras, when I shoot with an R5 or an R8, like I know it's in focus. Like I can literally just hold down back button focus with eye detect, and I know the subject's in focus. So then I just very quickly check. I chimp it on the back of the camera and I go, yep, everything's good. And then I move on. And ways that I measure that, when I first started shooting weddings, I might take 2,500 shots throughout the course of an entire 8-hour day, which doesn't sound like a lot when you think about an 8-hour day. That's a long day. However, I've gotten to the point where I can go from 2,500 shots down to 1,000 shots because I know a wedding. I've learned a wedding. I've gotten better at shooting weddings. You know, the only time I ever hold down drive mode in a wedding is during the kiss. It's like, I know I'm going to get totally like thrown under the bus if I don't get this right. So I just, I'm like, all right, I take like 40 shots of the kiss, and then I look at the back of my camera and go, I got it. Otherwise, it's moments. I pretend I'm a film shooter. I'm like, hey, there's a moment. Click, I captured it. Now I'm going to move on to the next moment. Click, and I think about the moment. And you know, it's the how much work is your gear doing? Because if you're not actually immersed in what you're doing and you're just kind of like letting your camera do its work, how much are you actually a photographer? Or are you just somebody who's a chimp who holds down a camera? Are you just a monkey who pushes a button at that point? Yeah. How much intention are you putting into your work? I'm like, oh, wow, I'm seeing that the groom is starting to get teary-eyed. Okay, I'm going to anticipate, okay, right here. Oh, they're about to hug. Click. You know, like you have that internal dialogue going on. If you're not thinking about that kind of stuff, are you really doing your job, or are you just holding down a button? And, you know, I think that like I said, the number one thing that I would want you to take out of my advice here to get better at taking pictures is that efficiency is the sign of improvement.
I would agree.
Yeah, you take less pictures, you get better pictures.
Plus, when you're being deliberate about how you're taking your shots and when you want to pull that shutter, when you want to fire a shot off, you learn a lot about not only yourself as a photographer, but you force yourself to become a little bit more experimental. You'll get more failed shots, but you also get more interesting successes and more interesting wins as well. Moving from that line of thought, it's important to be deliberate with the way that you color your images. Now, there's a school of thought where if you just make bright colors and they're contrasty and it makes an image pop, that you have an inherently good image. And I'm sorry, that is just not the case. I would argue, I think everyone would argue, that the color wheel and the use of split toning with the color wheel is more important. And this is something that's also, this is an incredibly important conversation, and this gets down to the philosophy of art is subjective, which it is not. It is not subjective whatsoever. There are rules in art. There are rules in cropping. There are Fibonacci spirals. There are the rule of thirds, and these rules don't come from nowhere. There is an objective way that we perceive art. There's an objective way that we perceive something to be beautiful that is appealing to us. And these rules that we've come up with, whether it be split toning, whether it be knowing your harmonious color wheel juxtapositions, or how to crop something, these all come from the idea that we all tend to believe something is appealing or attractive. So can you think outside of the box? Absolutely. But if you think outside of human nature, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's where a lot of these rules come from. And that's why we're going to talk about split toning in color grading right now. So here I've got Jonathan at 8 a.m. in Chinatown, and we've already color graded him. Now the color grade isn't super severe, but I want to show you exactly what I mean by using harmonious tones. So if you look right here, this is our color grading wheel. Right now we're on the shadows, and I've moved it to a nice warm orange red area, which if you see me get rid of that, suddenly you can see the blues come back in, and it's a cooler tone image. I'm going to move that back now. Now, on the converse side, on the opposite side of the spectrum, I have my highlights. Notice that my highlights are on the direct opposite side of the wheel as my shadows. Now, the color wheel is built like that for a reason, is because the opposite colors are harmonious. It's pleasing to the eyes. And so if you're ever split toning or you're ever color grading, try to stay within that realm, and your photos will come out a lot more harmonious. Now I'm going to take away this color wheel. I'm going to take away this grade real quick, and you're going to see kind of just the raw image with light adjustments. So boom. All right, what do we got? There's very little harmony in this image. In fact, the cool tone that I use to white balance the image is kind of taking over here, bleeding these orange jeans these blue jeans into a blue road, which should be naturally black, into the bluer, cooler shadows. You can tell the brown here is a little bit cooler compared to the redder part of the building up here. That's because there's cool tones leaking into the shadows. And the highlights themselves are a little bit more balanced. The white's even a little bit cool as well. Now, when I go back to the grade, you can see in the highlights I've maintained a coolness, but I've also brought warmth into the shadows, and it harmonizes. It creates a scene. It takes the bottom right here, which is the warmth of the shadows, and translates it all the way over here to the warmth of the shadows over here. It takes his highlights, which are naturally cooler, which I've maintained coolness over here, and translates them to the highlights over here on the top at the top of the image, which stays cool as well. And it's overall a more harmonious image. It's balanced. It looks like he is in a scene, and our eyes enjoy it a lot more.
I have to interrupt maintaining coolness because I'm a dad with dad jokes, which is, did he go to one of those stores where you buy shirts that aren't long enough?
Actually,
check out my hips.
Yo, funny enough, everything that he's wearing, they're his parents from the 80s. He brought all of his parents' clothes, which I think is really
early
cool.
2000s is back in right now, which it's like, hey, you don't have to like have the thong hanging out. It's cool.
Oh, the whale tail.
The whale tail is back apparently. I'm like, what is up? Like, I remember. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was college age when the whale tail was in, so like I was walking around campus with all sorts of eye candy. So I wasn't I'm good with that, but
Yeah.
it's just funny to see that it came back. It's like, oh, you guys really think that was cool? Because
Yeah.
I look back, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, moving on. I'm just going to keep going here because I can't relate. Moving on, this is another image of Jonathan that is very, very mildly enhanced with a grade. And so here I want to talk about why I moved both the shadows and the midtone towards the warmth and didn't touch the highlights. Because first and foremost, when you get rid of everything, this is a cool image. There's a lot of blue in this image, and I chose stylistically to add warmth to the shadows and the midtones because I wanted to offset the already inherent blues with, guess what? You go from this rusty white thing to the fence to his skin tones. What colors are prevailing in here? Blues and yellows. Why is it harmonious? Because you have blues and yellows. Guess what's on the opposite sides of the color wheel? You've got yellows here and you've got blues here. A lot of guys, they'll take an image like this and they will absolutely destroy it. They'll be like, oh, like I'm colorblind, so guess what? I'm gonna add a bunch of yellows in there, and I'm just gonna make this green and make it like, oh, whoa, cool, we're in the 70s. Look at that 70s look. Whoa, it looks like shit. Okay, don't do that.
Yeah, back when they couldn't process film like well.
Yeah, so like, okay, now what happens when? Okay, so let's just, for shits and giggles, let's just move this all the way up there to the highlights. And let's just start moving this all the way to the
Make it purple.
all the way to the blues. You have an immediate like nice split tone. And you can turn you turn the saturation down here and then you turn the saturation down here. And like that's appealing. You know, you can do the same thing. This is like, I'm trying not to be subjective here because inherently this is subjective, but it's also objective. It follows the rules of art. So
It can be both.
yeah, so let's do like a teal and orange. Okay, let's move more of like an orange in the highlights. Let's get there. And then let's do a teal. This is a trusted concoction. Again, that looks kind of hot. Like that's kind of sick. Again, you'd like go into here and you kind of like you do your HSLs and sort of take some of the blues out, take some of the teals out and balance the image so that his skin tones are still coming through in like a natural way. But like, again, like that's a nice split tone that harmonizes with the colors that are present in the image themselves.
Nice. Yeah. So to Brandon's point, something I want to talk about, which is, yeah, it's subjective, but it's also objective. Roy G. Biv, the electromagnetic spectrum, that is science. That is a physical thing. Yep. And so when you sit there and, you can subjectively go within those laws and say, I like this better than that, but there's a reason for it, and there's usually some sort of mathematics behind it too, with wavelengths and so on and so forth, and what you want to see with your eyes and how your brain processes things. So it's about being able to balance subjectivity and objectivity. Right?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there is a balance, and like that's the important thing is like I'm like a lot of people, what they do is they go into a photo and they just think to themselves, how can I make this so artistic? How can I make it more than it is? And they end up extending an image beyond what actually looks flattering, what actually looks good for the sake of expression. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to your local noise band and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. a lot of volume, no order, absolutely no rhythm, difficult to listen to, not appealing. It's simply an expressive form of art, which is very shallow inherently. So if you're trying to make something moving, if you're trying to tell a story, you're gonna get very little accomplished by just juicing stuff archaically.
All right. Yeah, I like it. Well, I'm going to move on to my next tip, which is, and this is a very generalized discussion, which is be aware of your surroundings. And what do I mean by that? It can mean a lot of different things. Be aware of your surroundings. A program like PhotoPills will tell you when the sun sets, where the sun will set. You can use augmented reality to take your phone and move it around to see exactly the path that the sun will set in. That's being aware of your surroundings. Knowing the weather forecast is being aware of your surroundings. Knowing that on a specific date the sun will hit something under a bridge at a certain way. That's being aware of your surroundings. Knowing that at 2 p.m. when everybody tells you that you cannot take good pictures at 2 p.m., you'll know that they're full of shit because you can go downtown and use the reflections off the skyscrapers to create beautiful softboxes to light up your subject, and you can be lazy and not even have to take your lights. If you are in a city for the first time and you know that crime is big there, maybe take your pepper spray with you. That's being aware of your surroundings. Another way of being aware of your surroundings is also through cross-discipline. I'm a street photographer, and I go shoot street photography. And you know what I'm doing while I'm shooting street photography? Yes, I'm living in the moment, and yes, I'm waiting for stories to develop, but I'm also scouting locations of where I want to take models at future dates. I'm like, ooh, this particular place could frame a human subject really well. I'm going to put that in my little notebook for when I come back here with a model, and I'm going to shoot the model in this exact same place. And I noticed that during this time of the year, the sun is hitting a certain way, and so on and so forth. It's being aware of your surroundings. And that's really all I have to say about that. That was a very short segment that I wanted to talk about, but just wanted you to think about that, because if you do take that and you run with it, it'll improve your photography. I'm pleased to announce that I'm launching 3 Capture One style packs: Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These will eventually also be available for Lightroom, so if you go to kevindealphotography.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and join my mailing list, I promise I won't send you spam, but I will let you know the second these release. And now, on to today's episode. All right, so we're back. Yes, I am putting out Capture One styles. Maybe I'll make them for Lightroom, but unfortunately, when you try to make preset packs, they don't translate from one raw editor to another. So I had to go back and redo them all and try to make them look the same. Or maybe, you know what, maybe I'll just remake a bunch of new preset packs for Lightroom and call them something else. So anyway, we're back. Brandon wants to talk about his next thing to improve your photography.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is my last major subject, my last major talking point on how to improve your photography, and this is a dicey one. So, okay, willful imperfections. That's what I'm trying to get at here, and that is when you can concoct a willful imperfection, thinking outside the box, but within the realm of taking appealing photos that tell a decent story. So here we have Sadie on a double exposure of Fuji's Pro 400H. And so I was dicking around with my Mamiya RB67, and I just decided, okay, let's take some double exposures and let's see what we get. Now I'm not gonna bluff and say that I think this is my strongest composition. However, I do think it is interesting in that I was able to take a far away, distant portrait of her and use the shape of her face and her shoulder to kind of outline half of her.
That's badass, by the way.
Thank you. And so you don't get a full image. You don't get the full Sadie.
Is that Cinestill? What is that? Would you shoot that on?
Pro 400H.
Pro 400H.
This is my last Pro 400H. It's all on the table. This is it. And so we cut Sadie up. There's no full Sadie. You only have the impression, the inflection of the model here, which I think is really interesting. Moving down, this is another one. We tried it a couple different times, and I wanted to see exactly what was going on. Here we've got another thing. We've got a texture going over her face. Not super artistic, not super like crazy, but it does add a little bit of like mystery. It adds a little bit of chaos, you know, because you can see that her pose itself is stress. It's thinking, it's pondering, it's a little bit distressed. And so what do you have? Well, where do you think? You think and you distress in your mind. There's no distress in her body right here. All the distress is at or above her shoulders into the headspace, right? So she's got a busy headspace. I thought that would have been interesting. And then moving that down again, like she's trying to make connections to the audience. She's trying to look into the camera. She's posing. Guess what? You can't fully get there. She has a look of distress. She looks stressed and tired. And guess what? She's incomplete. There's a sense of incompleteness. You don't get the full pose. You don't get the full Sadie. You get only the impression and the inflection of the tension. That's
just because you didn't move the reel of the film far enough.
No, you're absolutely right, Kevin.
Yeah, you got to do 3 clicks.
Willful imperfections, ladies and gentlemen. Willful. Key word. And so
I call it happy accidents.
Yeah, and so moving down. Yeah, let me just get into my crop.
You have light leaks there?
Light leaks?
What's that little stripe there? Is that a light leak, sir?
Oh no, this is it's two separate frames. So
Okay.
Yeah.
See, we're going back to cropping. You were so cropped in, I couldn't tell it was 2.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, and so I want to make one other case for willful imperfections, and we've already kind of seen these images, but I didn't really go through all of them, and so right here, I think it's important because these are a little bit more willful, if you catch my drift, in that this was all on purpose. Shooting this live on a digital camera, you're able to see what's going on, and you're able to make judgments on the fly. So here, I want to bring it back to Hales and talk about the willful imperfections of these images, and that is low fidelity shots that tell a story. The upside down, the blurry cat, like again, I edited this image and I could have absolutely made that more obvious it was a cat. I could have made it more high fidelity, but what I decided to do was keep just the impression of what was going on. It's a woman posing with her cat in an ominous dark garb juxtaposed with the silliness of a fluffy striped hat. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get more ridiculous than that, I promise you. Moving down the line here, I want to show you guys the black and whites. Look at these guys, willful imperfections. Not your classic photo. The subject is tiny, but the subject is balanced. Why? Why did I not crop this in after talking to you guys earlier about crop? Because she is framed in multiple ways. Your eyes go directly to the subject, and the fact that you can't see it is intentional.
That looks awesome.
Thank you. She's framed by 2 metal poles. It's industrial, it's harsh, it's cold, it's callous. Talking more about the prime, the aspect of 100 millimeters away. With this focal length, it looks as though I'm taking this further away than I actually am, just on the magnification in and of itself. It is a very distant photo. The way that she's framed, surrounded by this metal, surrounded by the glass, it looks very technical. It looks very, how do I say, like a hospital, it's very, oh gosh, what's the word?
It looks like those polio braces or something.
Exactly, right? Boom, same thing. Like, okay, we're looking at these imperfections. She's cut off halfway. She's probably a little bit out of focus here. And that's okay because she's got a long, distant stare into the subject here where you can see her and she's not there. It tells a story. Moving down, willful imperfections. Absolutely. These are all hella distorted. But as long as you're making the connection to those eyes do indeed tell a story. And here you have a little bit of relief in this series. Guess what? The imperfections are gone. They're above her. They're in her headspace. The contraption that distorts her is still there. You know what that is. And it's more of a technically accurate photo in her space, but you know what this is due to the other photos in the series, and it still tells a story. Here, willful imperfections.
It looks like she's walking with a hospital. It looks like she's got an IV and she's walking with it.
Exactly. She was laughing here, but upon first look, she's walking with what looks like an IV, even though it was my little apparatus to hold the Fresnel lenses. And you can't immediately tell whether she's in pain, writhing in pain, or laughing. And I can tell you she was laughing. It is these willful imperfections that tells a quizzical story. It asks more questions than it answers at times. Again, right here, her face isn't extremely well lit. You get just enough of her eye to know that she's looking off into the distance morbidly. And it's morbid because we have this same IV motif here that she just simply can't find space from. She doesn't have space of her own. She is once again framed by this totalitarian, oppressive machine. Boom. Willful imperfections, highlighting the emotionality of her face while everything is covered. Is she hiding or is she magnifying her discomfort? And again, in a completely opposite lens, she's hiding her face, but guess what? She's got a big old smile. These are some of my favorite shots I've ever taken, and
they're badass.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to nail willful imperfections, and this is one of the few series that I think I actually did.
Yes, and you told a great story, which brings me to my last thing that I want to talk about, because I saw a post on social media that kind of floored me and turned me into Clint Eastwood and El Dorado, the get off my lawn type of guy, which is Gran Torino. Well, I don't know why. Yeah, it's Gran Torino. Sorry, I'm getting old and forgetful. You're correct, Gran Torino, and I did see that movie. I've been drinking. Okay, I have a built-in excuse. So I see this all the time. An Instagram reel where the photographer tells a story about how they got the shot, but the shot itself doesn't tell a great story. And that leads me to my main point, which is you are not the main character in a movie. And if you want a tip that will help you greatly improve your photography is don't make it about you, make it about the photography. Because if you try to become like this personality and that's all people focus on and they don't focus on your photography, that means that your photography is objectively an afterthought. When I think about all the photographers who I follow, who I envy, who take way better pictures than me, when I go look at their social media accounts, you know what they're doing? They're just posting their really badass work. They're not posting, look at me, I'm this goofy personality guy. Look at how I got this shot. I saw somebody, and hopefully they don't watch this pod or listen to this pod, but I saw somebody who was like, I'm going to go take some shots in a convenience store. And like the whole thing was like a reel of, I asked the convenience store owner if we could take shots in their convenience store. And they said yes. And then they showed like a quick slideshow of all the shots they took in the convenience store. And every single shot was terrible. Every single shot. But it's a reel.
The value of the shoot came in the narrative that they had to add to it, right?
Look at I want to tell this story about how I got this shot. Okay, what's the shot? It's a steamy pile of dog shit where I don't understand how color temperature works. I have fluorescence hitting the skin of my subject and they look like they're a fucking heroin addict because their skin is green because they don't know how to counterbalance color temperature. And it's a very terrible shot, but it's a great story. The shop owner let me use their shop and they're eating Cheetos. And by the way, if you've ever done that or a laundromat shoot or a shoot in a graveyard, it's been done a million times. So try to come up with something more original. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and listening. F11pod.com is where you can find us. You can find us on all major social media platforms at the handle F11pod. Of course, if you like us, hit subscribe. If you don't like us, hit the dislike button twice. Two times. That's important. Very important. Twice. You got to dislike us twice. And if you have hot opinions, leave them in the comments below. And until next time, chase light and not algorithms.
Thank you for listening to today's episode.
For more information about this podcast, go to www.f11pod.com.